This story makes you think of some of your own. Tell us. You can find information on how to pitch us at themoth.org. After our break, a woman tells us why she refuses to be called young lady. When the Moth Radio Hour continues.
Because I'm not a young lady. I'm an old lady. Did you see these clouds over here? Randy. Huh?
Support for the Moth.
So I went to look for my program,
Each week, Storyworth emails
and I found a guy who says, well, maybe you want to do it cheaper.
Publish family memories into a bound book to keep forever. Learn more
Gee,
at
how did you know?
storyworth.com.
The Moth Radio Hour is produced by Atlantic Public Media in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, and presented by PRX.
Support comes from Powderhorn Mountain Resort, introducing 2024-2025 4-packs.
I remember
Features
that.
just
I
around the
remember
corner.
Powderhorn.
Learn about Powderhorn Mountain Resort 4-packs
I've been
at
staying up there a couple times.
powderhorn.com.
Huh?
I've been seen up there a couple times.
Where's it at?
In Grand Mesa. Powderhorn. I don't know why they call it Powderhorn, because there's some years they don't even open. Well, yes they don't. They limit it.
This is the Moth Radio Hour from PRX. I'm Sarah Austin Jeunesse, and this episode is all about new ways of looking at the world and broadening your mind. Carolyn Meyer, our next storyteller, is the kind of 80-plus-year-old who actively defies almost every stereotype associated with growing old. She introduced herself to us while we were deep in COVID and not in theaters, and she'd leave messages telling me things like, "Sarah, call me back. I'm getting up there, you know. I would love to tell my story before I die." Carolyn told us at our annual gala, the Moth Ball, where we celebrate all of the Moth's programs and stories of the year. So in the background, you'll hear some plates and forks and general merriment. Here's Carolyn Meyer, live at the Moth.
The year I turned 80, which is about 7 years ago,
PR turned 80, about a decade ago.
I walk into my neighborhood bar, and the bartender says, "What can I get for you, young lady?" He's smiling. I said, "Well, I'll have a glass of red wine, but please don't call me young lady." You know, whether it's a bartender or a security guard at
can't
the
be a
airport, or even my doctor, they don't call a 25-year-old young lady. But they call me young lady because I'm obviously not young. I haven't been a young lady since Richard Nixon was in the White House. Now, maybe they think it's flattering or cute. Well, it's not. It's condescending. But they, because of my white hair, they make assumptions about me. They have expectations. They deny the wholeness of who I am. So the bartender pours me a glass of Pinot Noir, and he says, "Oh, you know, age is just a number." Well, it isn't just a number. Back in the day, it meant I was old enough to drive a car, and a few years after that, to walk into a bar and order a drink. But when I hit my 80s, age took on a whole new meaning for me. I've been divorced twice, widowed once, but you know, I still think I have a whole lot of living left to do if I'm willing to step outside my comfort zone and take some risks. So, I signed up for online dating.
Good for you.
pretty good idea of the kind of guy I'd like to meet. You know, a sapiosexual, a man who thinks the sexiest part of a woman is between her ears. I decide not to lie about my age. Low maintenance compensates for high mileage. And I write what I think is, an intriguing profile, and I post it with some, recent pictures, and the algorithms kick in. You don't smoke. You both like dogs. You both lift weights. What more could anyone ask for? So, I start meeting some of these guys for coffee dates, and they're pleasant enough, but I always feel I'm interviewing a man I don't want to hire for a job he doesn't want to get. But then along comes Michael. Michael's an architect. There's a photograph of him, silver temples at the good-looking guy. And, candid shots of him riding his Ducati motorcycle and strolling through a museum somewhere. Now, Michael is 10 years younger than I. It doesn't seem to bother him. Doesn't bother me. So, there is a problem. He lives in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that, there's about 1,000 miles in between there, and that could present some problems. We were not even thinking about that at the time. We exchanged messages through the website, and then on our personal emails accounts. And then very quickly, we're talking on the phone. We have a lot to talk about. We talk about the personal stuff, our marriages and our disappointments and our enthusiasms, our dreams. Pretty soon, we are talking every day. Every day. He calls in the morning and says, talking with you is a ray of sunshine in my life. And he calls in the evening and says, you are my sweet addiction. Oh my God. I just love that. And who wouldn't? So, these are very intense conversations. And one night, when we've been doing this for a while, and I've really come to trust him and feel comfortable with him. And I tell him about the mastectomy that I had decades ago, but how it still affects how I feel about myself as a woman. We end the conversation and say goodnight, and Michael sends me a message. My dear Carolyn, you're a strong woman. I'm growing fond of you. And I want to thank you for sharing something so deeply personal with me. Well, I am growing very fond of Michael. And so naturally we begin making plans, talking about how we're going to meet. Michael has an idea. He has to go to Kuala Lumpur on an architectural thing. He's the lead architect on a shopping center that's being built there. On his way back, he will stop off in Albuquerque and we'll spend some time together and get to know each other on a real basis and see where this is taking us. Well, I am so excited about this, but I am also apprehensive. When we actually meet and he sees me in the flesh, is he still going to be attracted to me? I mean, the wrinkles, the flab, the mastectomy scars. But, we proceed with this plan. He flies to Malaysia, and we still continue to talk every day because we figured out this 14-hour time difference. And he tells me about the delicious Malaysian food, and he talks about the translator he's hired and the engineers, and he has all sorts of funny stories to tell. It's almost like I'm on this journey with him. And so, I begin to make plans about, what we're going to do. I get a haircut, and I buy some new underwear, and I plan the meals that I'm going to cook for him, and the trips I'm going to take him around New Mexico. I am really I'm really excited about this. The morning that he is to leave, he calls me, and he sounds terrible. Michael, what's wrong? He says, oh, I'm down at the port, at the customs house, and I'm waiting to sign off on some equipment, specialized equipment that we need for this project. And the customs people won't release it to me because they haven't paid the customs fees. Michael, what are you gonna do? He says, Carolyn, you know I'd never ask this of you. If it weren't that my whole career is tied up in this, could you possibly lend me some money to pay those fees? I promise I'll pay them back as soon as I get back to Nebraska.
She never sees him again, right?
Well, of course,
maybe I haven't heard.
Michael.
Sounds like a
Of
scam
course
to me.
not. How much do you need? $50,000.
$50,000.
50 grand? Michael? I
You need to
don't-
pay
I
for
don't
my
have
trip to frickin'
$50,000.
wherever he's at.
My problem solving kicks in. Well, call the bank in Nebraska. Call your architectural partners. Call the shippers of the equipment. He has a reason why none of this will work. Well, he says, could you make it 30,000? Well, as the dollar number dropped, the red flag went up. There were probably red flags before, but I didn't see them, or maybe I didn't want to see them. But all of a sudden, everything is crystal clear. His plan to come to visit, his being his sweet addiction, who he says he is, none of it is true. Well, no, Michael, no. And I hang up, end the call, that's that. Then I go to Google. Well, might you ask why I didn't do this in the first place? And I enter his name and, oh, I know, add fraudster to it. Up pops his rap sheet. He's done this before, more than once. I am not his first sweet addiction, as it turns out. That the photograph of the good-looking guy with the silver temples, and there's a Google thing for that too. That's Peter McCallum, an Australian movie star. So I report Michael to the dating site, and he is banished. Well, I'm beyond disappointed. I'm embarrassed that I let it go on for as long as I was fooled for as long as I was. I am also extremely pissed. But, I get over it. I move on. I get back to writing again. And then I think, maybe I should put myself out there and take another risk, step outside the comfort zone, do something. And so I sign up for an improv comedy class. And a few months later, I'm back at that same bar doing stand-up. And I will confess to you that it's pretty raunchy. And yet the audience doesn't know what to make of it. Neither does the bartender. And then I go on, and I develop a one-woman show and perform that, and I do another one. I keep putting myself out there, taking the risk. Well, time goes on, and you think that I would have learned with the Michael debacle to stay away from online dating, but what the hell? Give it another shot. So last year, I signed up again, and along comes Robert. Robert is a photographer. He lives in Albuquerque. Turns out we met before. He came to see one of my performances. I knew over that first cup of coffee that here was a man who really looked at me. He looked at me, he sees me for who I have always wanted to be seen. He sees the wholeness of me. Tomorrow, I'll fly back to Albuquerque and Robert will pick me up at the airport and we'll see where this takes us from here.
That was Carolyn Meyer. Carolyn has written more than 60 children's books to date, and her first solo show called, you guessed it, Don't Call Me Young Lady, opened in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where she has lived for the past 4 decades. She says it proved that I could stand on stage for over an hour and hardly ever forget my lines. And dear listener, Carolyn and Robert married 1 year after their first date, on the day before Carolyn's 87th birthday. To see the photo of their wedding day with Carolyn in a beautiful blue silk
got
tunic,
back online,
eating waffles with Robert and drinking champagne and doing things
they
there.
apparently met before
to the
because he went to
Moth
one of her shows. And she was saying that over the first cup of coffee, she knew that he was something special.
So did she get a find a boyfriend?
She got married to 87 or whatever.
After the break, a woman in Kisumu, Kenya, re-envisions her life when she attends a ceremony where she must return her dowry. When the Moth Radio Hour continues.
She's gonna return her dowry because who they married her off to she don't like no more.
Look at that cloud, right?
Supported by Progressive Insurance.
Where it looks like a finger?
Use Progressive's rate comparison tool to
An eye
avoid
over there?
insurance options in one place and find
a
a
peace
rate that
sign.
works.
See it?
More at progressive.com or 1-800
It was,
Progressive.
there it is.
Comparison rates not available in all states or
See, sticking out of a cloud? Like
The
that?
Moth Radio Hour is produced by Atlantic
Right up
Public
there.
Media
Looks like a
in
dog up
Woods
there.
Hole, Massachusetts, and presented by PRX.
You don't see that?
Many thanks to Coble Communities for its financial support of CPR. Learn more at cobalco.com.
Now it's gone now.
Hundreds of organizations sponsor
looks like a little
Colorado
low,
Public
a
Radio.
little-
Information is on the support page at cpr.org.
Neighbors helping neighbors.
Volunteering in Ukraine. It's become a part of our everyday life.
Feasts with new friends.
Hot peppers, tomatoes, garlic, and they're grinding all of that into a
What about cold in there?
Guerrero State, Mexico.
Beirut.
St. Petersburg. Download Germany.
Lagos. We'll take you there on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Weekday afternoons from 4 to 6:30 on KRCC and CPR News.
You're listening to the Moth Radio Hour from PRX. I'm Sara Austin Jeunesse. Sometimes, in order to think outside the box, you need to write yourself a new story. Our last storyteller, Rosalind Orwa, grew up in Wagoma, a small Gulf village near Kisumu, Kenya, on the shores of Lake Victoria. And that's where this story takes place. The story starts with a dowry refund ceremony, which is extremely rare. For anyone who doesn't know, dowry is a cultural practice in Kenya and many other African countries, where the groom's family gives gifts of animals and sometimes money to the bride's family. And while the practice is evolving, it remains significant in some societies. With that, here's Rosalind Orwa live at the Moth in New Bedford, Massachusetts.
When I was in my 20s, I returned to my rural village, to my home in Western Kenya, to attend my own dowry refund ceremony.
Dowry refund.
You see, in my community, dowry price once paid settles a woman into her marital home forever, in life or in death, in most cases. And it's